They believed the war was won, until the human arrived. The massive viewscreen aboard the flagship Eternal Vigilance displayed the remnants of the Scourge fleet drifting through space. Twisted metal and frozen bodies floated among the debris field that stretched across the Vega system. Admiral Korathal stood tall, his scaled skin gleaming under the bridge lights as his 4 eyes surveyed what remained of their enemies. "Send the message to all Confederate worlds," he ordered, his voice a deep rumble that silenced the busy command center. "The war is over. Victory is ours." The communications officer, a slender, blue-skinned Proximan named Nyx, nodded her bulbous head and pressed her 3-fingered hand against the console. Within seconds, the Admiral's face was broadcasting to 17 star systems and hundreds of worlds. "Citizens of the Galactic Confederacy," Korathal began, his expression solemn despite the occasion. "Today marks the end of our long struggle. For 10 years we have fought against the Scourge, an enemy that sought not just to conquer but to devour all life in our galaxy. Through unity and sacrifice we have prevailed. The last Scourge warship has been destroyed. Our futures are our own once more." Across the Confederacy, celebrations erupted. On the agricultural plains of Centauri Prime, farmers set fire to effigies of Scourge warriors. In the floating cities of Neptune, aquatic Tritonians performed their victory songs, their melodic tones carrying through water and air alike. Even on the desert world of Karna, where the reclusive crystal beings rarely showed emotion, light displays of joy and relief flickered across their silicon surfaces. On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Lieutenant Commander Zex Tyrrell watched the celebrations with mandibles twitching in what passed for a smile among his insectoid species. "Hard to believe it's really over," he clicked to his friend Vorn, a hulking furry Urson who stood head and shoulders above everyone else on the bridge. Vorn grunted, scratching at the battle scars that ran across his snout. 10 years, 2 million. Confederate soldiers dead, billions of civilians, 17 planets glassed. He shook his massive head. Too high a price. "But we won," Zex Tyrrell insisted, his compound eyes reflecting the viewscreen's images of celebration. "That's what matters now." 3 decks below, Intelligence Officer Mila Chinshaw frowned at her display terminal. The slender, pale analyst had been monitoring deep space signals throughout the final battle. Something had caught her attention, an anomalous reading at the edge of the battlefield. "Computer analyze signal pattern Delta 93, she said, her 6-fingered hands moving across the holographic controls. "Signal analysis complete," the computer responded. "Consistent with battle debris and residual energy discharges." Mila wasn't convinced. The pattern seemed too regular, too contained. But after 10 years of war, and with victory finally declared, perhaps she was being overly cautious. She hesitated, then marked the file as resolved and joined her colleagues, heading to the mess hall for the victory celebration. 27 million miles away, at the very edge of the battlefield, a small craft drifted silently among the debris. Unlike the sleek organic curves of Confederate ships or the sharp menacing angles of Scourge vessels, this ship was boxy and utilitarian. Its hull was covered in a material that absorbed rather than reflected light, making it nearly invisible against the blackness of space. Inside the cockpit, a single figure sat motionless, watching the Confederate celebrations through intercepted transmissions. Sergeant Ryan Winters removed his helmet, revealing a face weathered beyond its 32 years. His brown hair was cut short in military fashion, and a scar ran from his right eyebrow to his jawline. He rubbed the stubble on his chin and watched the aliens celebrate with tired blue eyes. "Computer," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Record personal log." A small light blinked on his console, indicating the recording had begun. Day 184 since the ambush at Proxima Centauri. The Confederacy believes they've won the war. They think they destroyed the last of the Scourge fleet today in the Vega system. Ryan paused, taking a sip of recycled water from his canteen. "They're wrong." He pulled up a holographic display showing a series of spatial coordinates and energy readings he had been tracking for the past 6 months. "The Scourge are masters of deception. What the Confederacy destroyed today was significant, but it wasn't their main fleet. Based on the data I've gathered, I believe at least 60% of their forces have already retreated to the dark space beyond the Oort cloud. They're regrouping, not defeated. Ryan stood up and stretched, his joints cracking after hours of sitting still. The ship, officially designated as Scout Vessel ESV-117 but nicknamed Ghost by Ryan, was designed for one pilot and a two-person crew. Now he was the only human left aboard, the only human left in this sector of space as far as he knew. "Computer, show me the status of our communication array," he ordered. "Long-range communications remain non-functional," the computer replied, in its flat feminine voice. "Damage sustained during escape from Proxima Centauri exceeds repair capabilities with available resources." Ryan nodded. He had expected that answer. It was the same one he'd received for 6 months. Without the ability to contact either Earth or the Confederate High Command directly, he would have to deliver his warning in person. "Plot a course to Proxima Station," he said. "Maintain stealth protocols. We need to reach the Confederate command without alerting any potential Scourge spies." Course plotted. Estimated arrival, 3 standard days at current power levels. Ryan returned to his seat and buckled in as the ship's engines hummed to life, barely audible even inside the craft. As the Ghost began its careful journey, he looked out at the celebrating Confederate ships one last time. "They think they won the war," he murmured to himself. "They have no idea what's coming." The small craft slipped away from the debris field, invisible to the Confederate sensors. The Ghost lived up to its name, moving like a shadow among the stars. Inside, the lone human prepared himself for what would come next. He checked his sidearm, a standard-issue Earth Defense Force pulse pistol, and then began reviewing Confederate security protocols he would need to bypass. Ryan knew the aliens would not welcome his arrival or his warning. Humans were latecomers to the Confederacy, their world only discovered 50 years earlier, and their military contribution to the war effort minimal compared to the older, more advanced species. His warning would be met with skepticism at best, hostility at worst, but he had no choice. The data he carried could save billions of lives if the Confederate leadership believed him in time. And if they didn't, if the Scourge launched their surprise attack while the Confederacy celebrated, then the war that had consumed the galaxy for a decade would seem like merely a prelude to the real horror about to begin. Ryan Winters set his jaw and focused on the task ahead. He was one human against an unbelieving galaxy of aliens and an enemy force waiting in the shadows. But sometimes, he thought, one was enough to make a difference. They believed the war was won, until the human arrived. 3 weeks after the victory celebration, Proxima Station buzzed with activity. The massive space station served as the central hub for the Confederacy's diplomatic and military operations in this sector. Its ring-shaped structure housed representatives from all 17 allied species, with ships constantly arriving and departing from the hundreds of docking bays that lined its outer edge. In Docking Bay 84, a cargo vessel from the agricultural World of New Harvest was being processed for entry. The ship's captain, a portly Terran named Kyle Bennett, handed over his credentials to the security officer. "Grain shipment for the station's food reserves," he explained, scratching his beard. "Should be on your manifest." The security officer, a reptilian saurian named Dila, checked her screen and nodded. "Cleared for unloading, Captain Bennett. Please ensure your crew remains in the designated areas." What neither of them knew was that their exchange was being observed. Ryan Winters had arrived at Proxima Station 2 days earlier, not in his stealth ship, but hidden aboard a waste management vessel. Now he moved through the station's maintenance tunnels, watching through ventilation grates and accessing computer terminals when no one was looking. The Ghost was hidden in a debris field near the station, its systems powered down except for the emergency beacon that only Ryan could activate. He had left most of his equipment behind, carrying only what he could conceal. A small computer device strapped to his forearm under his sleeve, a compact multi-tool, and his sidearm hidden beneath a loose panel in section C12 where he'd created a temporary shelter. Ryan watched Captain Bennett walk away, then turned his attention to Security Officer Dila. She was his key to accessing the station's central database. As she turned to her console, Ryan activated the scanner on his wrist device, capturing her security credentials from a distance. "Gotcha," he whispered, downloading the data. 3 levels above, in the station's command center, Station Commander Prell addressed his staff. The avian alien's feathers were preened to perfection, his beak polished for the occasion. "The Confederate Council will be arriving in 2 days for the Victory Summit," he announced. "Every system needs to be operating at peak efficiency. Security protocols must be flawless. This station will host the highest-ranking officials from all 17 worlds, and we will not have any incidents." Lieutenant Olivia Grant, one of the few humans assigned to the station's security detail, raised her hand. "Sir, we've detected some minor system anomalies in the past few days. Nothing serious, but unusual access patterns in the lower-level databases." Commander Prell's head jerked in that distinctive avian movement that indicated annoyance. "Lieutenant, we have thousands of new personnel arriving for the summit. System access patterns are bound to change. Focus on real threats, not computer glitches." Olivia nodded, but made a note to investigate further on her own time. Unlike her commander, she wasn't ready to dismiss potential security concerns, especially with the summit approaching. That night, while the station's lighting dimmed to simulate evening, Ryan made his move. Using Dila's stolen credentials, he accessed a restricted terminal in an unoccupied maintenance room. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he bypassed secondary security measures. "Computer, access Confederate military intelligence reports from the past 6 months," he muttered. "Focus on Scourge fleet movements and communications." The screen, filled with data. Ryan's eyes widened as he found confirmation of his worst fears. The intelligence reports showed unexplained energy signatures beyond the Oort cloud, exactly where Ryan had tracked the retreating Scourge fleet. But the Confederate analysts had dismissed these readings as sensor ghosts or natural phenomena. "They're blind to what's coming," Ryan said to himself. He continued digging, uncovering scattered reports of missing scout ships and outposts that had gone silent. Each incident had been treated as isolated, with reasonable explanations offered. Equipment, failure, crew error, meteor strikes. But when mapped together, they formed a pattern. A systematic elimination of Confederate observation posts along a specific approach vector. Ryan was so absorbed in his discovery that he almost missed the sound of the door sliding open. He ducked behind a stack of supply crates just as Lieutenant Grant entered the room. Olivia frowned at the active terminal. "That's strange," she murmured, approaching the screen. "This terminal should be locked." She glanced at the access log and her frown deepened. "Accessed with Officer Dila's credentials, but Dila is on duty at Docking Bay 84 right now." Ryan held his breath as the lieutenant pulled out her communicator. "Security Command, this is Lieutenant Grant. I need a location check on Officer Dila and a system trace on her credentials." There was a pause before the response came. "Lieutenant, Officer Dila is confirmed at her post. Her credentials are currently being used at your location. Sending backup immediately." Olivia drew her weapon, a standard Confederate stun baton. "Whoever's in here, come out now. Security forces are on their way." Ryan weighed his options quickly. He could attempt to escape, but that would only intensify the manhunt. He needed allies, not enemies. Taking a deep breath, he stood up from behind the crates, hands raised. "Don't shoot," he said calmly. "My name is Sergeant Ryan Winters, Earth Defense Force. I need to speak with Confederate Command about an urgent threat." Olivia kept her weapon trained on him. "Any particular reason you're hacking our systems instead of requesting a meeting?" "Because what I have to say isn't what anyone wants to hear," Ryan replied. "The war isn't over. The Scourge are regrouping, and they're planning something bigger than anything we've seen before." The lieutenant's eyes narrowed. "The Scourge fleet was destroyed 3 weeks ago. Every intelligence report confirms it." Ryan gestured to the screen behind her. "Not every report. Look at the pattern of those energy signatures. Look at the missing outposts. It's all there if you know what to look for." Hesitantly, Olivia glanced at the screen while keeping her weapon pointed at Ryan. Her expression changed as she saw what he had uncovered. "Even if what you're showing me is true," she said, slowly, "why the secrecy? Why not go through proper channels?" "Because I've been trying to send warnings for 6 months." Ryan said with frustration clear in his voice. No one would listen. And now with this victory summit happening, the entire Confederate leadership will be gathered in one place. A look of understanding crossed Olivia's face. You think that's their target? Ryan nodded grimly. It would be the perfect chance to cripple the Confederacy in one strike. Kill the leadership while everyone's celebrating, then launch their real attack while the 17 worlds are thrown into chaos. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Time was running out. Lieutenant, Ryan said, urgently, I need your help. We need to get this information to someone who will listen before it's too late. Olivia Grant stood frozen in indecision, the weight of his words sinking in. The footsteps grew louder. They believed the war was won, until the human arrived in here. Olivia called out to the approaching security team. Then she quickly turned to Ryan and whispered, Hide behind those supply containers again. I'll handle this. Ryan nodded gratefully and ducked out of sight just as 3 security officers entered the room. Their leader, a muscular Urson like Vorn, stepped forward. Lieutenant Grant, what's the situation? He asked, weapon at the ready. Olivia gestured to the terminal. False. Alarm, Officer Brill. I was doing some security testing and accidentally triggered the alert. The system flagged unauthorized use of Officer Dila's credentials because I was using them to test our protocols. The Urson looked skeptical, his furry brow furrowing. You should have cleared that with Security Command first, Lieutenant. You're right, Olivia said with an apologetic smile. It won't happen again. I'll file the proper paperwork immediately. After a moment of consideration, Officer Brell nodded. See that you do. We can't have unauthorized security tests during summit preparations. The security team left, and Olivia waited until their footsteps faded before turning back to Ryan's hiding place. You can come out now. Ryan emerged cautiously. Thank you. Not many people would take that kind of risk for a stranger. I didn't do it for you, Olivia clarified. If there's even a small chance you're right about the scourge, someone needs to investigate. Show me what you found. For the next hour, Ryan explained everything he had discovered since escaping the ambush 6 months ago. He showed her the tracking data from his ship, the patterns of Confederate outposts going silent, and the energy signatures that matched known scourge technology. They're gathering here, he pointed to a region of space beyond the Oort cloud. Based on the energy output, I estimate at least 60 warships, possibly more. Olivia's face paled. That's more than they had at the Battle of Vega. Exactly. What the Confederacy destroyed wasn't their main fleet. It was a sacrifice to make us think we'd won. Ryan ran a hand through his short hair. And it worked perfectly. Now every important leader in the Confederacy is gathering in one place to celebrate. We need to take this to Commander Prell, Olivia decided. Ryan shook his head. He already dismissed your concerns about the system anomalies. He won't listen to a human fugitive with a wild theory. Then we go higher, Olivia insisted. The Confederate Council arrives tomorrow. There's one person who might listen, Ambassador Peter Dixon. He's the human representative to the Council. Can you arrange a meeting? Olivia nodded. I'm part of the security detail for the Earth delegation. I can get you 5 minutes with him when he arrives. The following day, Proxima Station was transformed. Decorations celebrating the victory hung in every corridor. Security was tight as ships carrying dignitaries began arriving at the diplomatic docking bays. Ryan waited nervously in a small storage room near the Earth delegation's quarters. He wore a borrowed maintenance uniform that Olivia had provided, along with a fake ID badge that would get him through basic security checkpoints. The door slid open, and Olivia entered, followed by a tall man in an elegant diplomatic uniform. Ambassador Peter Dixon was in his early 50s with silver hair at his temples and a serious expression that softened slightly when he saw Ryan. Sergeant Winters, the ambassador greeted him. Lieutenant Grant tells me you have urgent information regarding the scourge. Yes, sir, Ryan replied, standing at attention out of habit. The war isn't over. The scourge are regrouping beyond the Oort cloud and planning a new attack. I believe they intend to strike during the victory summit, possibly tomorrow. Dixon's expression remained neutral as Ryan showed him the data on a small display screen. When Ryan finished his explanation, the ambassador was quiet for a long moment. "That's a serious accusation, Sergeant," he finally said. "If you're wrong, you'll have caused panic during what should be a celebration of peace. If you're right—" He didn't finish the sentence. "I know how it sounds, sir," Ryan admitted, "but I've tracked their movements for 6 months. All the evidence points to this conclusion." Dixon turned to Olivia. "Lieutenant, what's your assessment?" "The data is concerning, sir," she replied. "At minimum, it warrants investigation before the summit proceeds." The ambassador nodded. "I agree. I'll bring this to Admiral Korathal's attention immediately. He's the highest military authority here." "Thank you, sir," Ryan said, relief evident in his voice. "Don't thank me yet, Sergeant," Dixon warned. "The Admiral isn't known for his fondness of humans or his willingness to consider unpopular viewpoints." 2 hours later, Ryan and Olivia stood before Admiral Korathal in a secure conference room. Ambassador Dixon had made the introduction, but was now called away to welcome the arriving Centaurian delegation. The Admiral's 4 eyes studied Ryan with obvious distaste. "So you're the human who thinks we cannot recognize when we've won a war?" "With respect, Admiral," Ryan replied, "the evidence suggests the Scourge want you to believe you've won. It's a trap." "Evidence?" The Admiral's scaly skin rippled in what Ryan recognized as the Saurian equivalent of a dismissive laugh. "You show me sensor ghosts and coincidences. Our intelligence division is the finest in the galaxy. They've confirmed the Scourge's destruction. Your intelligence division is overlooking critical patterns," Ryan insisted, bringing up the data on the room's main display. "These energy signatures match Scourge warp drives. These communication blackouts form a pattern of advance." The Admiral waved a clawed hand. "Enough. Do you know how many false alarms we've had since the victory? How many soldiers jump at shadows? After 10 years of war? I will not disrupt the peace summit because one human cannot accept that his species played only a minor role in our victory." Ryan felt his temper rising but fought to keep his voice calm. "This isn't about pride or politics, Admiral. It's about survival." "Admiral," Olivia interjected, "what if we simply increased security and ran some additional scans of the sector Sergeant Winters identified? As a precaution?" Korathal's upper eyes narrowed. "Lieutenant, your career with Confederate security forces is promising. Don't jeopardize it by entertaining paranoid fantasies." The Admiral turned back to Ryan. "Sergeant Winters, in respect to Ambassador Dixon, I will not have you detained for accessing our systems without authorization. But this meeting is over. Return to Earth and leave warfare to those who understand it." As the Admiral swept from the room, Ryan turned to Olivia in frustration. "Now what?" "We need more concrete proof," she said quietly. "Something he can't dismiss so easily." Ryan's expression darkened. "By the time we have that kind of proof, it might be too late." The door opened again and a young Proximan aide entered. "Lieutenant Grant, there's a priority message for you from Security Command." Olivia checked her communicator and frowned. "That's strange. They've detected an unauthorized shuttle approaching the station from the debris field. It's using Earth Defense Force transponder codes." Ryan's eyes widened. "The Ghost. I left it powered down. Someone's activated it remotely." They looked at each other, the same thought occurring to both of them simultaneously. "The Scourge," Ryan whispered. "They've found my ship. The attack is starting." They believed the war was won until the human arrived. "We need to get to the command center," Ryan said urgently. "If the Scourge have my ship, they could use its stealth technology to get close to the station." Olivia nodded and led the way, moving quickly through the crowded corridors. The station's visitors were oblivious to the potential danger, chatting excitedly about the upcoming victory ceremonies. When they reached the command center, it was already in a state of controlled chaos. Commander Prell stood in the center, barking orders as officers rushed to their stations. "Status report on that approaching vessel," Prell demanded. A young officer responded, "It's maintaining course toward Docking Bay 12, sir. Still broadcasting Earth Defense Force codes but not responding to hails." Prell noticed Olivia and Ryan entering. "Lieutenant Grant, you're not authorized to bring civilians into the command center during an alert." "Sir, This is Sergeant Ryan, Winters of the Earth Defense Force, Olivia explained quickly. That's his ship approaching the station, but he's been here for days. Someone else is piloting it. Prell's avian eyes narrowed. Explain, Sergeant. Now. Ryan stepped forward. Commander, my ship was hidden in the debris field with minimal power. Only I have the access codes to activate it remotely. If it's approaching the station, someone else has taken control, most likely Scourge infiltrators. Scourge? Prell scoffed. The Scourge were defeated 3 weeks ago. No, sir, they weren't, Ryan insisted. What you destroyed was only part of their fleet. The rest have been hiding, planning a counterattack. I've been trying to warn. He was interrupted by an alarm blaring through the command center. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace, an officer shouted. Configuration matches Scourge attack vessels. The main view screen showed dozens of sharp, angular ships appearing in the space around Proxima Station. Their black hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making them look like moving shadows against the stars. Commander Prell's feathers stood on end. Impossible, he whispered. Sir, a communications officer called out, we're receiving reports of similar Scourge fleets appearing at Centauri Prime, New Harvest, and 3 other Confederate worlds. Ryan turned to Prell. Commander, this is a coordinated attack. They waited until the Confederate leadership was gathered for the summit. They want to cut off the head in one strike. Prell stared at the screen, momentarily frozen by the shock of what he was seeing. Then his training took over. Battle stations, all hands to defense positions, alert Admiral Corathal and the Council immediately. As the command center erupted into activity, Ryan moved to a tactical station. Commander, permission to access your defense systems? I know Scourge attack patterns better than most. Prell hesitated only briefly before nodding. Granted. Lieutenant Grant, assist him. Olivia joined Ryan at the console as he pulled up the station's defensive capabilities. We need to prioritize protecting the diplomatic section, he said. That's where all the leaders are gathered. On the main screen they watched as the Scourge ships began their approach. Unlike previous Scourge attacks which relied on overwhelming force, these ships were moving with precision and strategy. Something's different, Ryan muttered. They're not attacking in their usual pattern. Before Olivia could respond, the doors to the command center slid open. Admiral Corathal strode in, followed by Ambassador Dixon and several other council members. Report, the Admiral demanded. Commander Prell quickly explained the situation as more alerts came in from across Confederate space. Corathal's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he processed the information. It appears you were correct, Sergeant Winters, the Admiral admitted, his voice tight. The war was not won after all. Sir, Ryan replied, we need to evacuate the Council members immediately. The diplomatic section will be their primary target. Dixon stepped forward. The Council is already moving to the emergency transport vessels, but we have over 200 delegates and staff. Evacuation will take time. The station shuddered as the first Scourge energy weapons made contact with the outer shields. Shields at 92%, an officer reported. Defensive batteries returning fire. Ryan studied the tactical display with growing concern. Admiral, look at their flight patterns. They're not trying to destroy the station. They're hurting us. Corathal moved to Ryan's side, his earlier disdain forgotten in the face of this new threat. Explain. These smaller attacks are designed to push our defensive forces to specific sections, leaving others vulnerable, Ryan explained. It's a hunting tactic humans used centuries ago. Beaters would drive prey toward waiting hunters. As if confirming his words, a new alert sounded. Large object detected on approach vector, an officer called out. Sir, it's massive. At least 3 times the size of any known Scourge vessel. The view screen shifted to show a massive ship emerging from the darkness of space. Unlike the sleek attack vessels, this ship was bulky and bristling with what appeared to be enormous energy emitters. Ryan's blood ran cold. That's their real weapon. Ambassador Dixon moved closer to the screen. What is that thing? I don't know exactly, Ryan admitted. But based on those energy signatures, it's some kind of superweapon. possibly designed to destroy the entire station at once. Admiral Korathal turned to his officers. Redirect all defensive fire to that vessel. Launch every fighter we have. It won't be enough, Ryan said quietly. Not in time. The Admiral's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of intense stress among his species. What do you suggest, Sergeant? Ryan looked at the display, mind racing. Then his eyes fixed on a small blip, his ship, the Ghost, still approaching the station. My ship, he said suddenly. The Scourge have it on autopilot, probably to use as a bomb. But if I can regain control... How? Olivia asked. You said, they've overridden your access codes. Not all of them, Ryan said. There's an emergency protocol I built in, a hidden backdoor that can't be detected or overridden, but I need to be closer to establish the connection. Admiral Korathal understood immediately. You want to go out there? In the middle of a space battle? Ryan nodded. If I can reclaim my ship, I can get close to that Scourge weapon. The Ghost has experimental technology that might give us a chance. The Admiral was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Commander Prell, give Sergeant Winters whatever he needs. I'll go with him, Olivia volunteered. No, Ryan said firmly. You're needed here to help with the evacuation. I work better alone. Anyway. As Ryan turned to leave, Ambassador Dixon grabbed his arm. That's a suicide mission, Sergeant. Ryan gave a small smile. Probably. But it might buy enough time for the Council to escape. Sometimes one human is all it takes to make a difference. The station shook again as another blast hit the shields. Time was running out. Good luck, Sergeant Winters, Admiral Korathal said formally. The Confederacy owes you a debt already, whatever happens next. Ryan nodded once, then sprinted from the command center. Behind him, the view screen showed the massive Scourge weapon beginning to glow as it powered up. The final battle for Proxima Station had begun. They believed the war was won. Until the human arrived, Ryan raced through the crowded corridors of Proxima Station. Emergency alarms blared overhead as civilians and non-essential personnel rushed toward evacuation points. The station shuddered, repeatedly as Scourge weapons found their mark against the weakening shields. He reached a small auxiliary hangar where a maintenance worker was preparing a repair shuttle. I need your vessel, Ryan said, showing the emergency authorization code Admiral Korathal had transmitted to his identification badge. Confederate military priority. The worker, a short Proximan with blue skin, looked at the code and nodded. Quickly. It's fueled and ready, but it's not built for combat. I don't need it for combat, Ryan replied, climbing into the pilot's seat. Just need to catch my own ship. As the hangar doors opened, Ryan got his first direct view of the battle. It was worse than he had imagined. At least 30 Scourge attack vessels swarmed around Proxima Station. The station's defense turrets fired continuously, occasionally, finding their mark and turning a Scourge ship into a ball of expanding debris. But for every ship they destroyed, another took its place. And beyond them all loomed the massive Scourge weapon platform, now glowing with building energy. Ryan activated the shuttle's engines and launched into the chaos. The small vessel shook violently as he navigated through weapons fire and debris. His eyes scanned the battlefield, searching for the familiar outline of his ship. There you are, he muttered as he spotted the Ghost hovering near the outer edge of the battle. Its stealth systems were deactivated, making it visible to the naked eye. Another sign that the Scourge were controlling it remotely. Ryan pushed the shuttle to its maximum speed, racing toward his ship. He activated his wrist computer and began the process of establishing a connection with the Ghost's hidden emergency systems. Back in the command center, Olivia watched anxiously as Ryan's shuttle appeared on the tactical display. What is he planning? Commander Prell asked, watching the small dot that represented Ryan's shuttle racing toward the edge of the battle. I'm not sure, Olivia admitted, but if anyone can pull off a miracle right now, it's him. Admiral Korathal studied the display, with all four eyes. The Scourge weapon is almost fully charged. Evacuation is only 40% complete. We need more time. As if hearing the Admiral's words, Ryan's shuttle suddenly accelerated, dodging between Scourge attack vessels with a skill that impressed even the veteran officers watching. In the E shuttle, Ryan's fingers flew across the control panel as warning lights flashed around him. The small vessel wasn't designed for these maneuvers and its systems were beginning to fail, but he was getting closer to the Ghost. Just a little more, he whispered, initiating the emergency override sequence he had built into his ship years ago. A sequence that only he knew existed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights on the Ghost flickered, and Ryan felt a surge of hope. The override was working. He guided his shuttle alongside his ship, now close enough to see the Scourge device attached to its hull, a black box pulsing with alien energy. "Computer, initiate docking procedure," Ryan ordered. "Warning, target vessel compromised by unknown technology." The shuttle's computer responded. "Docking not recommended." "Override, emergency protocol," Ryan insisted. The shuttle extended its docking tube toward the Ghost as Ryan prepared for the dangerous transfer. If the Scourge device detected his approach, it might trigger prematurely. With a metallic clang, the two vessels connected. Ryan sealed his flight suit and moved quickly through the docking tube. When he reached the Ghost's airlock, he paused to check the atmosphere. Breathable, he confirmed, relieved that the Scourge hadn't vented the oxygen. That would have complicated things. Ryan entered his ship and moved directly to the cockpit. The familiar controls were lit up with warning messages, and a new interface pulsed on the main screen. The Scourge control system. "Not anymore," Ryan said, activating the captain's override. The alien interface flickered and disappeared as the ship's original systems came back online. "Welcome back, Captain Winters," the ship's AI greeted him. "Warning, foreign object detected on hull. Explosive device armed and counting down." Ryan checked the readings. "Can you disarm it?" "Negative. Device is using unknown technology. Countdown estimated at 3 minutes to detonation." Ryan looked out the viewport at the massive Scourge weapon platform, now glowing bright enough to rival a small star. An idea formed in his mind. Desperate, likely suicidal, but possibly their only chance. He opened a communication channel to Proxima Station. "Command Center, this is Winters. I've reclaimed the Ghost, but there's a Scourge bomb attached that I can't disarm. It's on a 3-minute countdown." Admiral Corathal's voice came through. "Can you jettison it?" "Negative," Ryan replied. "It's fused to the hull, but I can use it. That Scourge superweapon is charging up for a station-killing blast. I'm going to give them a taste of their own medicine." There was a moment of silence before the Admiral spoke again. "Understood, Sergeant. The Confederacy will remember your sacrifice." Ryan engaged the Ghost's stealth systems and plotted a direct course for the Scourge weapon platform. With the stealth activated, the enemy wouldn't see him coming until it was too late. "Lieutenant Grant," Ryan said, knowing Olivia would be listening. "Make sure they actually learn from this. Humans have a saying. Those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. The Confederacy needs to stop underestimating its enemies." "I will," Olivia promised, her voice tight with emotion. "Good luck, Ryan." The Ghost accelerated toward him, the massive Scourge weapon. As he approached, Ryan could see details of its construction. Massive energy collectors feeding into a central chamber that now pulsed with blinding light. 1 minute to detonation, the ship's AI announced calmly. Ryan pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, aiming directly for what appeared to be the main power core of the weapon. The Ghost responded perfectly, living up to its name as it slipped through the Scourge defenses undetected. 30 seconds to detonation. On Proxima Station, everyone in the command center watched in silence as Ryan's ship disappeared from their sensors, its stealth systems now fully engaged. 20 seconds. Ryan looked at the rapidly growing form of the Scourge weapon filling his viewport. He thought of Earth, of his fallen comrades, and of the billions of lives across the Confederacy that would be saved if he succeeded. 10 seconds. He aimed for a glowing section near the center of the weapon platform. 5 seconds. Ryan closed his eyes. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The Scourge bomb detonated at the exact moment the Ghost crashed into the superweapon's core. The resulting explosion was small at first, a pinpoint of light that quickly expanded into a blinding sphere of energy. The Scourge weapon platform shuddered, then began to break apart as chain reactions tore through its systems. In the command center, the officers watched in awe as the massive Scourge weapon exploded spectacularly, taking several nearby attack vessels with it. "He did it," Olivia whispered. The remaining Scourge ships, suddenly without their main weapon and apparently confused by the unexpected turn of events, began to retreat. Admiral Korathal stood silent for a long moment, watching as the Scourge fleet scattered. Then he turned to Commander Prell. "Send word to all Confederate forces the Scourge are vulnerable. Press the attack." Across Confederate space, the tide of battle turned. What had begun as a surprise attack ended in a true victory, but at a heavy cost. 1 month later, a new memorial stood in the main concourse of Proxima Station. A simple plaque read, "In memory of Sergeant Ryan Winters, who taught the Confederacy that sometimes one human is enough to change the course of history." Admiral Korathal stood before the memorial, his 4 eyes solemn. "We will not forget," he promised quietly, "and we will not underestimate humans again."